Jordan, and I'm just wondering if you've ever seen one of these before. This is the Big Spoon. This is the original Big Spoon, often copied but never duplicated, and this is the one that made the Big Spoon famous. This is him right here. This is called the Big Joe Spoon. It's from Lake Fork. It's made by my good friend Joe Spates. They're very hard to get. They're custom made, custom painted, got a little sparkle on them. But Joe Spates is the guy that got this Big Spoon started, and I've had it for years, and it was my little secret until ultimate match fishing on Kentucky Lake in the finals. Everybody got to see me catch them off those leads. Until that point, it was my personal private secret that I never showed anybody. I never told them what I was doing. John Murray, another Bassmaster Elite Pro, saw me catch them on Kentucky Lake, shoot, I think 5 or 6 years ago. Marizo Shimizu actually won that event. I did really well. I made the top 12 cut. He saw me throwing a big shiny thing, and he wanted to see it, and he tells me to this day that I wouldn't show it to him. I don't know if it was that bad, but he's pretty certain I wouldn't even let him see it. Anyway, it's kind of been a craze last couple years. People are figuring out this is a great deal, but this is the spoon that started the whole gig, and I'm the bad guy that let the cat out of the bag, and now everybody has one. You have to go buy them. There's several on the market that are copies of this. Joe makes all he can make. He's just, he's the guy that has his own tackle factory is what he calls it. It's there on Lake Fork. He makes some of the best jigs, best spinner baits, best buzz baits, and best spoons, and he hand makes them all. He can't keep up with demand, but there's something special. If you care about getting something special, that is the original, made by a guy who loves to fish and is a great man and human being. That would, if you call him, he'll probably tell you everything he knows about throwing this spoon, which is more than I know about throwing this spoon. Look up Joe Spates at Tackle Factory at Lake Fork and ask him how he started this spoon, how it was a secret for a long time, and how I let the cat out of the bag. I wished I had it to this day at some point. Everybody's got to have a secret. I don't have that secret any longer. But this bait is a dynamic bait, these big spoons. Like I said, it's been copied a bunch. There aren't many out there that are like this original. They're actually heavier than they look. They're not just a stamped piece of metal. They're heavier. I believe they're brass, which is a little bit heavier than stamped steel. Makes a lot of difference in how they fall and how fast you can quick them. I mean, how quick you can fish them when they fall. It's all about the flutter. Fish bite it when it's falling. You want to have that right action going down. And if you're fishing 25 feet of water, you want it to get down there pretty quick, or else you might get bored before it gets to the bottom. Well, I get a lot of questions on how to fish this bait. It's really simple. Just remember the bass, they want to hit it when it's falling. The bass are usually pretty close to the bottom, except not always when they're suspended, and you can actually catch them by swimming this spoon at the depth that where they are and catching them pretty good. But they want to hit it falling. You can cast it a long way because it's pretty heavy. You can throw it on pretty heavy line. Matter of fact, I would recommend not throwing it on light line, not anything less than 15-pound line, because number one, there's no need for it. Number two, you can get in trouble because it's a big old piece of metal, come around, hook, get you whatever, and you're probably going to be hooking some pretty big fish on it if you catch them on it. And if you have stripers on your lake, you got to be prepared to deal with them as well, because they will bite this too. The way I tell people to fish it everywhere where they throw a deep crankbait, a Carolina rig, a football jig, a swim bait, any other deep technique, drop shot even, except that it's not very weedless. You can see that. That being said, you can get it unhung pretty much off of rocks and stumps and natural cover that's underwater by just going over the top of it and letting it yo-yo it up and down, because this bait is kind of like its own plug knocker. The spoon will fall down and go, and it'll knock the hook off. You can get most of them off. Now when you hook trot lines and old fishing line and stuff like that, that kind of poses a problem, but you can get most of them back. But long cast, deep water, throw them wherever you fish deep, and there's pretty much two ways to fish it. One is with big old rips up off the bottom, and that's actually bringing the spoon to shoot maybe 5 or 7 feet off the bottom, and then it falls a long way back down to the bottom. That's one way. That's one way to trigger them into biting, because a big rip is just a fast-moving bait that can get that school of fish to react and get them fired up. And once that happens, sometimes you can start catching them every cast because they're all excited and think something's going on. The other way, and this is pretty much the way I usually fish it, unless I have to rip it real hard, is I throw it there and I just fish it like a plastic worm. That being said, I don't fish it slow. How I mean by a plastic worm is you just give it little hops. It's like fishing a plastic worm at about maybe a 4 times speed, because this obviously falls to the bottom quicker than a plastic worm does, unless you're throwing a plastic worm on like a 1 ounce weight or something like that. Just give it little hops, fall, hop, fall, hop, fall. I've had them pick it up, take it off the bottom. What that does, it lets your bait stay in the strike zone, especially if you have a little spot that's not very big and there's a big school of fish there. A big rip, 7 feet off the bottom, 2 or 3 of those, your bait's gonna move 15 feet forward and be out of the strike zone. You give it little hops on the bottom, it's gonna be in their face, and if they're fired up, one little hop and it's over, one's got it. And you may jack with it, around with it in presentation and figure out your own technique. There's no right or wrong way to fish it, as long as the fish tell you what they want. And if you're catching fish on it, then you're fishing it right in some way. So don't let it scare you throwing this spoon out there. It's actually a lot easier to fish than you think. Like I said, fish it just like you would a worm. Except you want it to be coming off the bottom and drop. You want the big hook? I usually throw it on at least a 7-foot rod, medium heavy. You could throw it on a 8-foot rod if you want to. But like I said, it's a pretty power technique. Usually 17 or 20 pound test line. A long rod, so you can throw it a long way. Set the hook, you got these big fish on it. A lot of times you'll catch the biggest fish in the school. It's a pretty awesome bait. So look old Joe's baits up at Lake Fork. Try to find this. You can find his baits at Lake Fork Marina too at Lake Fork.